The year my wife Elena secured a prestigious residency position in Metro City came with an unexpected family sponsorship, a provision allowing her spouse and child to join her with full residency benefits. Everyone naturally assumed she would list me and our son Daniel on that coveted slot. After all, we had been married for 5 years, and she had always vowed to provide our child with the finest educational opportunities available. But when the official list was published, the family members listed under her sponsorship were her former husband Marcus and his son Ethan. His son is entering his final year before university applications. He needs this residency status far more urgently than you do, Elena explained to me that evening. Daniel is only in 2nd grade. Waiting a few more years will not affect his future at all. She handed me an application packet for the merit-based residency program instead, promising that as soon as Ethan completed his university applications, she would immediately process our paperwork. 6 months later, I emigrated to France with Daniel. When Elena next saw us and noticed Daniel's European passport in his hands, she suffered a complete emotional breakdown. "How could you abandon me like this? We were supposed to remain together as a family," she sobbed through the video call. I discovered the residency sponsorship roster during my lunch break at the office. A colleague had shared the announcement link in our department group chat, congratulating Elena on finally landing such a secure government position. I opened the document and meticulously scanned every name from the beginning to the end, then reversed the process and checked again from bottom to top. In the column designated for sponsored family members, 2 names appeared in unmistakable black text: Marcus Chen and Ethan Chen. Marcus, Elena's former husband. Ethan, Marcus's son from his previous relationship. My son Daniel was nowhere on that list. My name was absent as well. Blood surged to my head and a sharp ringing filled my ears. I grabbed my phone, rushed out of the office, and hid in the emergency stairwell to call Elena. The phone rang endlessly before she finally answered. The background noise suggested she was at some crowded celebration, with voices shouting congratulations and clinking glasses. "Hello, Adrian. What do you need?" "I am somewhat occupied at the moment," Elena said, her voice laced with barely concealed impatience. "Elena, I need you to explain something to me immediately. What is happening with the residency sponsorship list?" "What do you mean?" "The application was approved. I am celebrating with my colleagues right now. I am asking you why Marcus and his son are listed as your sponsored family members instead of us." My voice echoed harshly in the concrete stairwell, volume rising despite my efforts at control. The line went silent for several seconds before Elena responded in a hissing whisper. "Lower your voice. Why are you shouting like this? I will explain everything to you later when I get home." "Explain it to me right now. Are you telling me you have absolutely no intention of securing residency for me and our son?" "There you go again with this dramatic behavior," she said, impatience transforming into open irritation. "Did I not already tell you? Ethan is about to begin his university application process. This residency status is the single most important factor for his entire academic future. It could determine everything for him. What about my son? What about Daniel? Is he no longer your son as well? Does he not deserve the same consideration for his future? Daniel is only 7 years old. What possible harm could waiting a few additional years cause? Can you not be more reasonable and understand what genuinely matters here?" I was so furious that laughter escaped my throat. "Important. So in your calculation, your former husband's son holds more importance than our own child. Is that your position? Why must you twist everything into something irrational? Marcus and I are finished. I am simply helping him for the sake of old memories. Besides, I am doing this primarily for Ethan. He is such an exceptional student. It would be an absolute tragedy if he failed to gain admission to a prestigious university simply because of residency complications." "A tragedy," I repeated slowly. "Elena, you begged me to marry you. You promised you would give me and our child a better existence, the finest educational opportunities for Daniel. Is this what you meant by the finest? Giving my son's opportunity to your former husband's child? When did I ever say I would not secure residency for you?" She backtracked immediately. "I already obtained the application forms for the merit-based program for you. As soon as Ethan's university applications are submitted, I will immediately file the paperwork for you and Daniel. Everything is planned out perfectly, is it not?" The merit-based program. Elena, do you have any comprehension of how extensive that waiting list is? We could be waiting indefinitely. But this is an extraordinary circumstance. Can you not be slightly more considerate? I work incredibly hard out there for this family. Can you not simply give me some support? Give you support? You are out celebrating your wonderful new career with your former husband and his son while I am at home attempting to explain to our child why his mother does not want him anymore. What kind of absurd nonsense are you spouting? When did I ever indicate that I do not want Daniel? Your actions communicate far more clearly than your words ever could. I heard a masculine voice in the background asking Elena who was calling. Come on, it is time to cut the celebration cake. It was unmistakably Marcus's voice. Elena's tone immediately softened as if attempting to soothe both me and the men standing beside her. Okay. I am genuinely busy right now. I cannot continue this conversation. Stop overthinking everything. I will explain the entire situation when I return home tonight. With that declaration, she disconnected the call. I stood motionless in that concrete stairwell, phone buzzing with the dead connection, a chill spreading through my entire body. I had been the proverbial frog sitting in slowly heating water for 5 years, and I had finally felt the temperature become unbearable. I did not return to our apartment. Instead, I took a taxi directly to my mother-in-law's residence. If Elena would not provide me with honest answers, her mother certainly possessed the information I needed. When I arrived, my mother-in-law Patricia was sitting comfortably in her living room, munching on roasted pumpkin seeds and watching television with a cheerful expression brightening her features. When she noticed me standing in her doorway, her smile faded noticeably. Adrian, what brings you here at this hour? Should you not be at work? I came to discuss the residency situation, Patricia, I said, eliminating all pleasantries from my tone. My mother-in-law ejected a seed husk and spoke with deliberate slowness. Oh, that matter. Did Elena not already explain it to you? She did explain. She informed me she is giving the sponsorship slot to Ethan because he is applying to universities. Well, there you have your answer, she said, pulling the seed tray closer to herself with complete nonchalance. Elena already provided you with a full explanation. Why are you running over here to question me about it? Her attitude was so matter-of-fact, without the slightest trace of guilt or acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The anger burning in my chest intensified dramatically. Patricia, Daniel is your biological grandson. Who is Ethan? What connection does he have to our family? Why should he receive my son's opportunity? What kind of language is that? Take. Elena gave that opportunity to him willingly, my mother-in-law said, her eyes widening with apparent shock at my audacity. Besides, that Ethan is such a pitiful child. He grew up without a mother, and it has not been easy for Marcus to raise him as a single father. Should we not help them when we can? Are we operating a charitable organization? Our own circumstances are far from ideal, and we are supposed to extend sympathy to others. Patricia, do not forget that Marcus is Elena's former husband. His son has absolutely no blood relation to our family whatsoever. Blood, that is all you ever obsess about, my mother-in-law said, slamming the seed tray onto the coffee table with force. Elena feels guilty about how their marriage ended and wants to make amends. What is wrong with that? As her husband, can you not be slightly more gracious? Must you create such an enormous scene over such a minor issue and turn the entire family upside down? A minor issue? Patricia, this concerns my son's entire future. You characterize that as a minor issue. How does it concern his entire future? Daniel is just a small child. What possible problem could arise from waiting a couple of additional years for his residency? Is it going to destroy him? You are simply selfish, only thinking about yourself and your son. You never consider what Elena needs or wants. I am selfish. I have been married to your daughter for 5 years, living in a cramped apartment barely larger than a storage unit, and when have you ever heard me voice a single complaint? I saved every possible dollar, never purchasing new clothing for myself, and invested all that money toward Elena's part-time master's degree program and her professional certifications. And for what purpose? For this exact day. I waited patiently for her to finally achieve success, and what is the very first action she takes? She turns around and gives the most valuable benefit to someone else entirely. How dare you accuse me of selfishness? How dare you say such things? My mother-in-law shot upward from her seat, pointing her finger directly at my face. The money you contributed was all earned by my daughter in the first place. She feeds you, she clothes you. Is that not enough? Now you believe you can dictate her life choices. Let me tell you something, Adrian Hayes. Elena runs this household. Whatever she decides is final. Your only responsibility is to go along with it. Just then, the apartment door opened. Elena had returned early, her face flushed from drinking. When she saw me standing in her mother's living room, her expression darkened considerably. Adrian, what are you doing here causing a scene? My mother-in-law rushed toward her as if she had found her savior. Daughter, thank goodness you are back. Look at this husband of yours. I attempted to reason with him, but he absolutely refuses to listen. He keeps insisting you have wronged him, that our family has wronged him. Making such an enormous fuss over a simple residency sponsorship. Elena looked at me with a face full of exhaustion. Can you just stop this behavior? I was celebrating with my colleagues, which is important for my professional relationships. But you. First you call and yell at me, and now you are here yelling at my mother. What is it you actually want? What do I want? Elena, I simply want what rightfully belongs to my son. I told you it is temporary. As soon as Ethan's university applications are complete, it will be your turn. Why will you not listen? I do not believe you. I stared directly at her. I need a straightforward answer from you today. Are you going to change the names on the sponsorship application or not? She probably felt humiliated, especially in front of her mother watching our confrontation. I said no, and I mean it. The decision has already been made. Creating a scene will not change anything. Fine, Elena. You said it yourself. I looked at her, then at her mother standing protectively beside her, and said each word with careful deliberation. You are going to regret this decision. Regret it. Let me tell you something, Adrian. The best decision I ever made was helping Ethan. The thing I regret most is marrying you in the first place. My mother-in-law chimed in with enthusiastic agreement. Exactly right. He brings you no fortune at all, just dead weight holding you back from your potential. Watching the two of them perform as a perfectly synchronized mother-daughter team, the last remaining fragment of warmth in my heart vanished completely. I did not argue anymore or attempt to reason with them. I simply turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Elena's irritated voice calling out. Where are you going now? Do not be foolish. It is late. I did not look back. Foolish. Yes, perhaps I was foolish. But my foolishness was only just beginning. I returned to our tiny apartment that barely qualified as adequate housing. The space was cramped and cluttered, the walls seeming to press inward oppressively. Daniel was already asleep, his small body curled up peacefully on the narrow bed we shared. I sat on the edge of the mattress, watching his innocent face, my heart twisting painfully. Why should the son I had poured my entire being into raising have to step aside for a stranger? Elena made it sound so simple, so reasonable. Just wait a few years. But the city's immigration policies changed constantly and unpredictably. Who could possibly know what circumstances would be like in several years? What if she simply threw up her hands then and declared it was impossible? Then my son and I would be permanently tethered to her in this city, permanent outsiders with no legal standing. No. I absolutely could not allow that outcome. I opened my laptop and began conducting research. Immigration options, relocation opportunities, overseas education programs. As I absorbed the information, my path became increasingly clear. France. My close friend Nathan had successfully relocated there on a skilled worker visa 2 years earlier. He consistently reported that the environment was excellent, the social benefits were comprehensive, and the system was especially supportive of children and families. I located his contact information and initiated a video call. He appeared surprised to see me reaching out at such an unusual hour. Adrian, what is happening? Why the sudden call? I did not waste time with pleasantries. I told him everything about Elena, the residency situation, Marcus and his son, the betrayal. Nathan was absolutely furious by the time I finished. Is this woman completely out of her mind? She has her own biological son but wants to raise her former husband's child instead. And you are a complete fool for tolerating her behavior for this long. Why are you still with a woman like that? I am planning to divorce her, I said with absolute calmness. I wanted to ask you whether it is realistic for me to emigrate to France with Daniel. Nathan paused, his expression turning serious. Adrian, have you genuinely thought this through? This is an enormous decision with permanent consequences. I have never been more certain of anything in my entire life. I cannot allow Daniel's future to be destroyed by Elena's selfishness. And I cannot continue wasting my own existence like this. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. Since you have made up your mind completely, I support you. I will contact the immigration consultant I used and determine what the fastest pathway is for your specific situation. Money is not an obstacle, I assured him. I owned a modest apartment that my parents had purchased for me before my marriage. It was not large, but in our hometown's real estate market, it was worth approximately $120,000. That property was my leverage, my ticket to freedom. Okay, I will get in touch with them as soon as possible. But what about your end? Are you going to inform her directly about your plans? No, I said, shaking my head firmly. If I tell her now, she will definitely attempt to stop me or sabotage my plans. I need to get everything completely arranged before I reveal anything. I needed time and privacy. I needed to be left alone to execute my plan. The next day, Elena did not return to our apartment. She sent a brief text message stating that her mother was sick from the stress I had supposedly caused, and she needed to stay at the hospital with her. At the end of the message, she called me a heartless bastard for not even sparing concern for an elderly woman. I looked at the text message without feeling a single flicker of emotion. Perfect. With her occupied elsewhere, it would be significantly easier for me to accomplish what needed to be done. I immediately contacted a real estate agent in my hometown and requested they sell my apartment. I had only one non-negotiable condition: a full cash offer completed as quickly as possible. Then I requested an extended leave of absence from my job, citing a family emergency that required my immediate attention. I took Daniel and traveled back to my hometown. My parents were absolutely livid after I explained what had happened. That horrible woman. We never should have permitted you to marry her, my father said immediately, reaching for his phone. I am calling her right now to give her a piece of my mind. I stopped him. Father, please do not. Yelling at her will accomplish nothing except make her suspicious. Right now, I need your help and support. I laid out my entire plan in detail. My father listened in complete silence for a long time, then released a deep sigh. All right. Since you have decided, your mother and I support you completely. If you need additional money, we will help you gather it together. It is enough, Father, I said, my eyes becoming slightly misty with gratitude. Selling the apartment will provide sufficient funds. In the following days, I threw myself entirely into immigration preparations. Contacting the consultant, gathering required documents, obtaining all necessary paperwork for Daniel. Everything was conducted in absolute secrecy. Elena would call occasionally, her tone still nasty and accusatory, demanding to know why I had not returned yet and asking whether I was attempting to destroy our family. I would respond calmly that my father was not feeling well and I needed to remain to care for him for several more days. She did not press the issue further, probably assuming I had run home to my parents like a scolded child and could not cause any real trouble from there. All her energy was focused on attending to her mother and maintaining her relationship with Marcus and his son Ethan. That was exactly what I wanted. The more she ignored our situation, the more smoothly my plan progressed. I watched as the immigration application advanced step by step. I watched as the sales contract for the apartment was signed and notarized. I watched the numbers in my bank account grow. I knew that freedom for Daniel and me was approaching rapidly. 1 month later, the money from the apartment sale was deposited into my account. I also received excellent news from the immigration consultant. My initial application had been approved, and I could soon proceed to the next stage of the process. Everything was happening faster than I could have imagined possible. I took Daniel and returned to Metro City. Elena had moved back into our rental apartment from her mother's place. She did not look particularly happy to see me standing in the doorway. So you decided to come back after all. I thought perhaps you had died back in your hometown. My father's health improved, so I returned, I said with deliberate calmness, placing my bags near the entrance. She probably interpreted my subdued demeanor as surrender because her attitude softened noticeably. Do not hold a grudge against my mother. That is simply how she is, direct and straightforward. In a couple of days, purchase something nice for her, accompany me to visit her, and apologize properly. We can put this entire unpleasant episode behind us. I did not say anything in response. The thought of me apologizing to that woman was absolutely laughable. By the way, did you complete the application for the merit-based residency program? Fill it out and submit it immediately. The sooner you get in the queue, the better your chances, she added. I removed the crumpled application form from my bag, smoothed out the wrinkles, and placed it in front of her on the table. I do not understand how to fill it out properly. You do it for me. She looked at my obedient demeanor with visible satisfaction. Fine, leave it here. I will take care of it in the next few days. She believed I had capitulated completely. She believed that as long as she dangled a vague, distant promise in front of me, I would revert to being the same devoted, uncomplaining husband who managed the household efficiently. She had absolutely no idea that all my compliance was merely an act designed to lower her defenses. For the next few weeks, I played the part of the perfect repentant husband with Academy Award-worthy performance. I cooked dinner and waited for her to arrive home every evening. When she complained about how demanding her work was, I gave her shoulder and back massages. When she talked about how diligently Ethan was studying and how much academic potential he possessed, I just listened quietly without comment. My submissiveness made Elena drop her guard completely. She started staying out progressively more, sometimes claiming it was overtime at work, other times that she was meeting with clients. But most of the time, I knew she was at Marcus's residence. Marcus seemed to be thoroughly enjoying this arrangement. He frequently posted vague, suggestive content on his social media feed. A photograph of an elaborate dinner with the caption, "The familiar taste. So delicious." Or a picture taken from the passenger seat showing a corner of the steering wheel with the parking permit from Elena's company clearly visible. He was deliberately provoking me. My co-workers noticed it as well, and some of them carefully broached the subject with me, tiptoeing around the obvious implications. I would just smile pleasantly. She has many work obligations, lots of professional socializing required. Everyone thought I was weak and pathetic. Only I knew what I was waiting for. I was waiting for an opportunity, a precise moment to extract myself and Daniel from this suffocating swamp for good. The opportunity arrived soon enough. The immigration consultant notified me that my medical examinations and interview had been passed successfully. All I needed to do was wait for the final visa approval, and we could depart. At the same time, Elena received notification that she was being sent on a month-long business assignment to a branch office in another city. Before she departed, she handed me the completed residency application. I have already submitted it for you, so just wait patiently. While I am gone this month, you take good care of Daniel and do not cause any more trouble for me. She patted my cheek condescendingly, the way someone might pet a well-behaved dog. I nodded and gave her a gentle smile. I understand. Have a safe trip. She walked out the door, dragging her expensive suitcase behind her, full of ambition and confidence. She believed she was heading off to build her career, to return to a life where she could have everything she wanted. She had no idea that when she walked out that door, she would never be able to return to this home again. The day after she departed, I received our passports with the European visas affixed inside the pages. I immediately booked airline tickets for a flight to France departing 3 days later. I did not go to my workplace to resign in person. I simply sent a brief text message to my supervisor. I sold every piece of furniture and every appliance we owned to second-hand dealers. I cleaned our rental apartment that had been my prison for 5 years until it was absolutely spotless, leaving no trace that we had ever lived there. I packed only 2 suitcases. One contained clothing for Daniel and myself. The other held all my savings and our official documents. On the day of our departure, I dressed Daniel in a new outfit. Daniel, father is taking you to a really wonderful place, okay? More exciting than the amusement park, I said. More fun than the amusement park? he asked, tilting his small head up at me with wide eyes. Yes, much more fun. We are going to a big house with sunshine and a grassy lawn, and nobody will ever bully us again. He nodded, not quite understanding but trusting me completely, and happily took my hand. Standing at the airport's floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched planes taking off and landing, massive machines defying gravity. My phone rang. It was Elena. I silenced it and did not answer. I knew she was simply calling to check up on me, to ask what her son and I were doing, to maintain her illusion of control. I imagined the expression on her face when she returned in 1 month to discover an empty apartment. It was going to be absolutely spectacular. Ladies and gentlemen, the flight to Paris is now boarding. The pleasant voice of the announcer echoed through the terminal. I glanced back one final time at the city where I had lived for 5 years. Goodbye, Elena. Goodbye to the miserable first half of my life. The aircraft landed at Paris International Airport. The moment I stepped out of the cabin and took my first breath of fresh, clean air, I felt my entire body relax as if releasing years of accumulated tension. Nathan was already waiting for us at the exit area. He gave me an enormous hug. Welcome to the new world, Adrian. He had arranged everything for me. Rented a comfortable apartment, contacted an excellent school for Daniel. My new life started more smoothly than I had dared to imagine. Daniel was incredibly adaptable to the new environment. The diverse, multicultural atmosphere at his school helped him make new friends quickly. Back home, he had always been somewhat timid and withdrawn. Elena's chronic neglect and my mother-in-law's constant criticism had taken a serious toll on his confidence. But here in France, he smiled more and more each day, and his self-assurance grew visibly. As for me, after getting us settled, I started planning my own future carefully. I enrolled in intensive language classes and began researching small business opportunities. I obtained a new European phone number. Unable to reach me through my old number, Elena could only send messages through messaging apps. She started to sense something was seriously wrong on the 3rd day of her business trip. Adrian, where are you? Why are you not answering your phone? I called your parents and they said you took Daniel and went back to your hometown. What are you trying to pull now? I am warning you, get back here immediately. Did you sell everything in the apartment? Adrian, are you insane? I did not reply to a single message. 1 month later, she returned from her business trip. She sent me a video message. In the video was our empty rental apartment, completely bare. Her voice in the recording was a shriek of fury. Adrian. Where are you? You emptied my home. You just wait. Immediately after, a video call came from my mother-in-law Patricia. I answered it calmly. Adrian, you godless man. You took all the money and ran, did you not? My daughter's hard-earned money, where did you take it? You get yourself back here right now. Patricia, that was money from the sale of my premarital property. It has absolutely nothing to do with your family, I said coolly. You bastard. Where did you take Daniel? He is our grandson. You bring him back immediately. Daniel's last name is Hayes now. He has nothing to do with your family anymore. With that declaration, I disconnected the call. They started frantically messaging and calling me repeatedly. I set all their numbers to silent mode. Occasionally, I would glance at their messages to observe what new insults they had invented. It was just the usual venomous curses and impotent rage. Elena even traveled to my hometown in person. My parents, exactly as I had instructed, simply told her they did not know anything and could not contact me. They could not find me, and they could not find Daniel. They were like 2 headless creatures buzzing around frantically. I knew they would not give up easily. But there was an entire ocean between us now. No matter how angry they were, they could not hurt me anymore. My new life was busy and fulfilling beyond measure. I soon received my permanent residency card. According to the regulations, after living in France for a certain number of years, Daniel and I could apply for full citizenship. The day I received my permanent residency, I took Daniel out for a celebratory dinner at a nice restaurant. He held up his glass of juice with both hands and, with a serious expression, said to me, "Congratulations, father." I smiled and ruffled his hair affectionately. "Congratulations to you as well, my little warrior." Our good life is just beginning. 6 months later, Daniel successfully obtained his European passport. The dark blue cover was new and crisp. I took a photograph of him holding it, smiling so widely his eyes narrowed into happy crescents. I set the photo as my profile picture on my messaging app. I knew that Elena would definitely see it. Sure enough, not long after, a video call came through. It was Elena. It was the first time I had answered her call since departing. When her face appeared on the screen, I was genuinely taken aback. She had lost a tremendous amount of weight. Her eyes were sunken deep in their sockets, her face gaunt and hollow. She radiated an aura of exhaustion and frustration. "Adrian, you finally decided to answer my call," she said, her voice hoarse and damaged. "What is it?" I asked, leaning back comfortably on my sofa, my tone deliberately calm. She noticed my surroundings through the video, the spacious, bright living room, the green lawn visible through the large picture window. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Where are you?" "Someplace you will never find." "You." She looked like she was about to unleash a torrent of curses but held it back with visible effort. She had seen my new profile picture. "What is that in your profile picture? What is Daniel holding?" "A passport," I said succinctly. "A passport? What passport? Is he going on a trip? Where are you taking him?" She asked in rapid-fire succession, panic creeping into her voice. I did not say anything immediately. I just called Daniel over. "Daniel, show your mother your new passport." Daniel was slightly shy but obediently held the passport up to the camera, opening it to the page displaying his photograph and name. "France," Daniel said, pronouncing the country's name in the French he had been learning. Elena's eyes were glued to the screen, the color draining completely from her face. "France. A passport. What is this? Adrian, what is going on?" She finally broke down, screaming at the screen. "It is exactly what it appears to be. Daniel and I have emigrated." "Emigrated?" She looked as if she had heard something from a fantasy novel. "Impossible. How could you possibly emigrate?" "The money. Where did you get that kind of money?" "I sold the apartment my parents bought me." "You." She was so angry she became temporarily speechless. It took her several moments to force out the words. "How could you not wait for me? We agreed, did we not? After Ethan's university applications were done, I was going to get you residency. How could you not wait for me?" I laughed. A long, loud laugh that echoed in my comfortable French apartment. "Wait for you? Elena, what was I supposed to wait for exactly? For you to benevolently grant me a spot on the merit-based waiting list? Or for you to build a happy little family with Marcus and his son and then turn around and take pity on me and my son? That is not true. I have nothing to do with Marcus anymore," she frantically argued. "Whether you do or not, you know the truth in your own heart. The moment you chose to gamble with my son's future for the sake of his son, you should have known this day would come eventually. It was just temporary. Daniel is still young. He could afford to wait," she repeated, still clinging to the same pathetic excuse. "He could not afford to wait, and neither could I, Elena. You never once asked me what I wanted. You just made decisions for me. Well, now I have made a decision for myself and for my son. This is betrayal. We are supposed to be a family. You promised we would always be together," she shrieked. "A family?" I stopped smiling, my expression turning cold. "The moment you gave that residency sponsorship to Ethan, this family was already broken beyond repair. Adrian, you come back here. You give me back my son," she screamed, slamming her hand violently on a table. "That is impossible." I pulled Daniel into my arms protectively and said to the camera, "Listen to me, Elena. From this day forward, I, Adrian Hayes, and my son Daniel Hayes have absolutely nothing to do with you or your family. You can return to your former husband, and you can spend the rest of your life with that son who shares none of your blood." With that final declaration, I disconnected the call. And then I blocked her number permanently. The world was finally completely quiet. Elena's breakdown was merely the beginning of her tragedy. After I blocked her, I never received another message from her directly. But my friend Nathan became my personal news correspondent, feeding me updates about the spectacular collapse of her life. The first bombshell was that the story of Elena giving the family sponsorship to her former husband's son had been leaked online. The whistleblower was a former co-worker of mine who had never approved of Elena's actions. She compiled screenshots of the official residency list, photographs of Daniel and me living in our cramped rental apartment, the pictures Marcus had posted on his social media feed, and wrote an extensive, detailed article. In the piece, she portrayed me as a long-suffering, devoted husband who sacrificed everything for his wife's career only to be ruthlessly betrayed. Elena was painted as a heartless social climber, a modern villain who abandoned her own biological child for her former husband and stepson. This kind of explosive family drama immediately ignited the fury of internet users. The article was shared wildly across platforms, and the comments section was filled with thousands of people cursing Elena. Disgusting. She abandoned her own son to raise someone else's child. Is this woman mentally ill? This is just a classic gold digger story. She used her husband's family to get ahead, and the second she got power, she turned on them. That former husband Marcus is no good either. He knew she was married with a family and still pursued her. What a complete scumbag. Someone find them. These kinds of trashy people deserve to be publicly shamed. The scandal exploded across social media, and even Elena's employer could not ignore it. The dream job, her secure government position, was snatched away before she could even get comfortable. The company terminated her employment, citing personal misconduct causing severe negative social impact. With her job gone, her residency status was naturally revoked as well. When Nathan told me this over the phone, he was laughing so hard he could barely breathe. You should have seen her, Adrian. She looked like a stray dog wandering the streets. She went to her company office to cause a scene, claiming she was framed, but the human resources director just reprimanded her severely and had security escort her out. Her former husband Marcus and his son Ethan lost their residency status as well. Because of the whole mess and the public humiliation, Ethan completely bombed his university entrance examinations and only gained admission to some third-rate college. Marcus fights with Elena constantly now, blaming her for being useless and not even being able to maintain her job. I listened quietly, feeling absolutely nothing. She brought it all on herself. If she had just honestly given the residency to Daniel and me, she would still be the promising, successful professional with a bright future ahead. But she chose the stupidest, most selfish path possible. Oh, and by the way, your former mother-in-law Patricia, Nathan added. Heard her daughter got fired and lost her residency, and the shock of it all caused her to have a massive stroke. They saved her life, but she is now paralyzed on one side of her body and can barely speak coherently. So now Elena has no job, no money, and has to care for a paralyzed mother. She is completely overwhelmed. And Marcus, seeing her complete downfall, wants nothing to do with her anymore. They fight constantly about medical bills and financial responsibilities. I heard they are about to separate permanently. When you are down, everyone kicks you, I sighed. When she and her mother ganged up on me, they were so arrogant and self-righteous. Now karma has come for them. I looked out the window at the beautiful French sky and just felt incredibly fortunate. Thank goodness I got out when I did. Thank goodness I did not waste the rest of my life in that pit of misery. The drama between Elena and Marcus ended faster and more violently than I had imagined possible. After Elena was terminated and her mother was paralyzed, Marcus finally showed his true colors completely. He took what little money Elena had left and disappeared without a trace. Elena could not find him anywhere. She was left alone to care for her invalid mother, surviving on whatever odd jobs she could find. Nathan said she probably hated me with a passion. She told anyone who would listen that I was a venomous husband who stole all her money and ruined her family. But nobody believed her anymore. To everyone in her life, she was just a cautionary tale, a joke. Marcus's fate, however, was even more dramatic and satisfying. You know those 2 apartments he supposedly owned in his hometown? The ones Elena had helped him pay for as compensation for their divorce. Well, shortly after he vanished, the truth emerged. Those 2 apartments were not his at all. He had acquired them through an elaborate marriage scam with his supposed former wife. His former wife was actually just his long-term mistress. The 2 of them ran an organized scheme where Marcus would marry wealthy single women, find ways to transfer their assets into his name, and then divorce them, taking half the property. Ethan was not his former wife's son. He was the biological son he had with his mistress. He had divorced Elena in the first place because he thought she was too poor and could not provide him with the lifestyle he desired. The only reason he came back to her this time was because his mistress had accumulated enormous gambling debts and was on the run from dangerous loan sharks. He was desperate and thought of Elena, his reliable, easy-to-manipulate backup plan. He had planned to use Elena's residency and stable government job to secure a foothold for himself and his son, wait for the trouble to blow over, and then figure things out from there. Who knew my actions would cause Elena's complete downfall as well? The best part is his mistress owed a tremendous amount of money, and when the creditors could not find her, they followed the clues and came after Marcus instead. He sold the 2 apartments he had scammed to pay off part of the debt, but it was not nearly enough. Now dangerous people show up at his door every day, splashing paint, writing threats on his walls. He is too terrified to even leave his house, Nathan said, his voice full of satisfaction. Then, out of complete desperation, he actually went back to find Elena. He lied to her, said Ethan was diagnosed with a serious illness and needed a huge amount of money for surgery. He wanted Elena to take him back for old times' sake and, while she was at it, help him pay off his debts. I could not help but laugh at that. Those two were a match made in hell, a pair of idiots perfectly suited for each other. And then what happened? I asked. Elena, who was already furious at losing everything because of him, had nowhere to vent her anger. She heard Marcus's story, remembered how he had stolen her money and abandoned her, and all that old and new hatred just exploded violently. She completely lost control on him. They got into a massive fight over money. In the chaos, Marcus grabbed a knife from the kitchen and accidentally stabbed her. It was not a fatal wound, but she bled significantly, and it was enough for a serious assault charge. Nathan sighed dramatically. So now Marcus is facing criminal charges for assault, and on top of that, the old marriage scam case was reopened by authorities. With multiple offenses, he is probably going to be incarcerated for several years. As for Elena, even though she is the victim in this particular incident, her reputation is completely destroyed. No job, no family, her mother is an invalid, and she herself got stabbed. It is about as miserable as existence gets. What goes around comes around. Karma is real, I said quietly. I listened to Nathan's account, my heart as still as a calm lake. I was not surprised at all by their complete downfall. One was supremely selfish, the other endlessly greedy. People like them, even without my intervention, would have eventually ruined their own lives for one reason or another. I was just the one who pressed the fast-forward button. By the way, Nathan said, your former mother-in-law Patricia, now paralyzed and with no one willing to care for her, had someone get in touch with me. She wants to know if you, for Daniel's sake, would be willing to send her some money for her retirement expenses. I laughed. Tell her Daniel's last name is Hayes. He has nothing to do with her family anymore. You got it. That is all I needed to hear. After disconnecting the call, I walked out of the cafe. The French evening sky was a canvas painted with the colors of sunset, breathtakingly beautiful. Daniel's school was just around the corner. It was almost time for dismissal. I leaned against my car, watching the people come and go, a relaxed smile on my face. The cage that once trapped me had been shattered by my own hands. The people who once hurt me had all received their deserved consequences. And I, at last, could take my child and breathe freely under the foreign sun, beginning our new, beautiful life. In the distance, the school bell rang. A crowd of children in school uniforms poured out of the gates, laughing and shouting enthusiastically. I spotted Daniel right away. He was running at the front of the pack, backpack bouncing, and when he saw me, he waved his arms energetically and came flying toward me. Father. His voice was clear and bright, full of pure joy. I opened my arms and caught him securely. Did you have a good day at school? Yes, he said, burying his head in my chest and nodding enthusiastically. We learned about famous French artists today, and I made a new friend named Lucas. That is wonderful, Daniel. I am so proud of you. I took his hand and we walked toward our car together. Father, what are we having for dinner tonight? Whatever you want. I want your special pasta with the cream sauce. All right, we will make it as soon as we get home. 2 figures, one large and one small, cast long shadows in the warm glow of the setting sun. Warm and unwavering. Our new life stretched out before us like an open road, full of possibilities and promise. The past was finally behind us, and the future belonged entirely to Daniel and me. As I drove home through the charming French streets, I glanced at Daniel in the rearview mirror. He was looking out the window, pointing excitedly at things that caught his attention, his face glowing with happiness I had never seen back in Metro City. Elena had made her choice. She chose her pride, her guilt, her former husband's son over her own family. And that choice cost her everything. Meanwhile, I made my choice too. I chose my son's future, our freedom, our dignity. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who do not value you. Sometimes the greatest love you can show your child is protecting them from those who would sacrifice their happiness for selfish reasons. That evening, as Daniel and I cooked dinner together in our bright, spacious kitchen, I realized something profound. I was happier now, in this foreign country where I had to rebuild everything from scratch, than I had ever been in those 5 years of marriage. Freedom, it turns out, tastes sweeter than any security built on disrespect. And the smile on my son's face as he helped me stir the pasta sauce was worth more than any residency sponsorship could ever be. We were home. Not because of where we were, but because we were finally free to be ourselves, valued and loved, in a place where nobody could take that away from us again. The story of my betrayal had ended. The story of my redemption had just begun.